Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight for the 2025 Papacosmas Perseids meteor shower event. On behalf of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's Montreal Centre, my name is Kareem Jaffer. I'm the Public Events Coordinator, and I'm also the astronomy prof at John Abbott. And we're happy to have you here tonight. What you'll see here is one of the pictures of a former past Perseids event. I believe it was right before COVID, either 2019 or 2018. And you can see that there's a good crowd set up all around the observatory. The dome is open, so people are going in and out. And the night sky is nice and clear. And we're hoping for something close to that tonight until the moon comes up at around 9:35. But even then, we're able to see a good amount of stars. So we're going to get a little bit of a feel for the types of things we get to see tonight. Before we get started, at the Montreal Centre, we always like leading off with a bit of a acknowledgement, not just of the reason why we're here, but also of the land and the sky that we share. So let's start off with the reason that we're here. We're here for learning about the Perseid meteor shower, learning about what makes this particular meteor shower so wonderful to see, not just the fact that it's summertime and we're not out at -34 weather like we are in December, but also the fact that it's one of the ones where we have very dominant meteor showers every year, almost reliable. There's only a few years that it's been a little bit lower in terms of the number of meteors that we see. Most years, everybody gets to see one or two really nice ones every night that you go out. But we've already had that so far the last few nights that we've been out here. This particular event is also one that we are dedicating to one of our longtime members who passed away just at the end of COVID, Constantine Papacosmas. And Constantine, when I came, one of my first experiences with him, I was a new astronomy prof at John Abbott. I'd been a physics prof there for a long time, but I'd just taken over the astronomy course. I was still learning the observational side. And we came out here for the meteor shower event. And as my students are walking towards the field, Constantine comes over and he goes, "Do you know what you're seeing in the night sky?" And they pointed to the Big Dipper and they pointed to the North Star because that much they had already retained in the first couple of days with me. And he's like, "No, but you know what you're seeing." And proceeds for the next 3 hours to point out and lead them through everything, things I couldn't see. He was showing them and making them look until they could see those details. He did that for everyone for decades here in the club. And one of our longtime members, who is currently in Arizona, our Honorary President David Levy, who was the founder of now 23 different comets, including the Shoemaker-Levy comet that in 1994 collided with Jupiter. Since COVID started and we switched over to Zoom and co-modal events, David has been able to join us and give a poetry and a welcome and even some memories for tonight, hopefully, for Constantine. So David, we're over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Kareem. It's great to be here. And I knew Constantine very well, and I'd like to share 3 particular stories with him. The first one was when David Zakin, one of the older members who has passed away since a number of years now, lent me an 8-inch reflector. And while he was in college, and when he came back from college, we knew that he would want it back. Constantine did not want to give it back to him. He wanted me to buy it. And so he came to my house and he was talking with my mom and my dad. And he said that you need to buy this telescope for your son. And Dad said, "Well, I appreciate why you're saying this, Constantine, but I can't show favoritism to buy an expensive thing for one son and ignore my daughter and my other sons." And Constantine said, "With all due respect, this is an exception. Your son is passionate about the night sky. He's never going to lose that, and I think you could do that." And I still have the receipt for $400 that Dad spent on that telescope. I still have it right now here. The second story was when I was very nearly expelled from the Royal Astronomical Society in Canada. Constantine came again and visited Mom and Dad, and told them the story of what was happening. And I remember Dad yelling and screaming at me for having a big mouth. And then a few days later, on my birthday, took me for a walk. And he said, David, would you mind if I took all that back? And I said, why would you want to? You're right. I do have a big mouth. I have a lot of growing up to do. And you're absolutely right. I have a lot of growing up left to do. Dad looked at me and said, I think you've just done some. It turned out that Isabel Williamson and I became very good friends later on for the rest of her life. The final story about Constantine was when Dad was very ill with his Alzheimer's disease. He could not remember my mother. He could barely remember me, but he loved Constantine. He never forgot Constantine. And Constantine was there, and Dad said, Constantine, do you know what's been going on with me? And Constantine looked at Dad and said, I'm afraid I do, Mr. Levy. And Dad said, I can't live like this. I wish I were dead. And Constantine waited a number of years before he told me that story, but I've never, ever forgotten it. Constantine was a very dear friend. He had his ways, as everyone here who knew him will remember, but I loved him, and he was a very, very dear friend. For my poetry tonight, I'm going to quote from Byron, who wrote a long poem called Manfred in 1816, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it. When the moon is on the wave, and the glowworm in the grass, and the meteor on the grave, and the wisp on the morass, when the falling stars are shooting, and the answered owls are hooting, and the silent leaves are still in the shadow of the hill, shall my soul be upon thine, with a power and with a sign. And I add an extra line, and tonight we go out and observe online. Thank you, Kareem, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Kareem. And thank you for sharing those memories with us as well. So you've now gotten some music and you've gotten some poetry to start off, and I'll mention to you a little bit later another event that's coming up where you'll get to explore both with us here in less hot conditions in a couple of months. For now, one of the other things that we like doing here at the Montreal Centre is acknowledging that we are on unceded Indigenous lands from both the Kanakake as well as the Anishinaabe. But we also share the night sky with these First Nations, with the First Nations and the Indigenous peoples from across the world, and ancient cultures across time. And we can see that often when we talk about different constellations, different night skies, different seasons, and look at the similarities and some of the comparisons with how we talk about some of the features of the night sky. One of the best places to see that is actually the lunar month. Because when you look at the lunar month and you look at the moon at different times of the year, we always call it by a different name. Right now, you will have seen in the news and on the radio and stuff last week that the full sturgeon moon was coming on Saturday night. And it was a beautiful full moon, but it didn't look much like a fish to me. I don't think it looked like a fish to you. So why do we refer to it as the sturgeon moon? It's because it gives us a chance to give ode to that fish that has not changed its DNA for almost 300 to 400 million years. It's the same basic fish, the same flesh, the same taste that the first peoples of Canada and the US would eat and the settlers would use to sustain themselves throughout the year. But it also recognizes the fact that in nature, there's certain times when you will go fishing for certain fish or hunting for certain animals. And one of the neat things about this particular moon is when you go from West Coast to East Coast, it has different symbolic names. So if I go just a little bit west from here to Cree Nation, they refer to it as the ricing moon to remind themselves to gather their grain harvest, because if they don't, when the September rains fall and it starts to get cool at night, you lose that crop. On the East Coast, the Mi'kmaq refer to as the berry ripening moon. And if you go to the St. Anne de Bellevue market this Saturday, you will see incredible blueberries coming from New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. They are delicious, they are sweet. It's the time to take them. And so we recognize that we do share both the stories and the observations of the night sky with cultures and landscapes across the entire world. Our Royal Astronomical Society of Canada Centre here is one of 30 centres from coast to coast to coast. And we have part of our vision, part of our mandate is not just to share the night sky among people who have an interest, but also to do outreach like tonight, where we can share a little bit of our knowledge, a little bit of our facility, and a little bit of our journey through the night sky with others. But at our Montreal Centre, we also like doing a lot with our members, with the students in the neighborhood, as well as with outreach. Last night, we were here for 300 people from the MDA family to do outreach for MDA. Previous weeks, we've done outreach with different libraries, different schools. With John Abbott, we have a wonderful arrangement with the astronomy library that Rascones hosted at John Abbott. Our observatory house hosted here at McGill Morgan Arboretum. We run events with Vanier, Dawson, Marianopolis, Concordia, University of Montreal, Cosmodome, Planetarium. And in fact, if you go to the planetarium and you go down to the ground floor, the old projector from the Peel Basin Planetarium that's there, Constantine, who tonight's event is named after, was the one to install and run that first planetarium projector in Montreal. So our history here is very, very deep. But our center, the reason why so many people join our center is because we are an active center. There are centers across the country where they have one members event a month and otherwise people do their own thing. Our center has 2 a week, which means that at some point over the season, if you have a night free and you're a member, you will have people to share that night sky with, to share your journey with, to ask your questions to. And there's no expectation of you being an astronomer or an astrophysicist. Most of us are hobbyists or artists or just appreciation of the night sky. That's what drives us. We have our magazine that we put out every 2 months called Skyward. And in fact, now that Canada doesn't have a national magazine, ours goes out across the country to all RASP members. More than 4,000 people share the journey with what our center does. Here on the screen, you'll see Luca, one of our younger members, and you'll see him out on the field later tonight. He completed the Observe the Universe certificate this year, which is identifying 20 different objects in the night sky and doing detailed observation notes. If you know of any other 11-year-old who can take detailed notes of 20 different objects and then drive himself, he came yesterday and told me he's almost done the moon certificate. And it's only been 3 months since he got the Observe the Universe certificate. So he's got this passion, he's got this understanding and this appreciation for what he's seeing in the night sky. And it's wonderful to see this sort of a passion blossom in a lot of the youth that join our club. The public events that we hold, we have some really nice ones coming up. Our keynote public lecture is going to be happening in a few weeks on Saturday, September 6th. It'll be held at John Abbott College. And it's a researcher, Dr. Lisa Dang, who's a new prof at University of Waterloo, originally from the Montreal area. And she studies hellish worlds, lava worlds. Those are planets like the Earth that are so close to their parent star that they suffer from constant magma eruptions from the actual core onto the surface. And so she's going to talk about what you can observe about these planets and what the conditions are like. On October 4th, we have that event that I was kind of teasing you about a little bit. We have poetry and music with observations of the moon and a constellations activity, all happening with a partner group called Preserve the Dark Sky or Dark Sky Preserve. And this is the piece of music that I played for you earlier. So their musical compilation can be found at that website, and it actually is entirely motivated by observations and experiences under a dark sky and the loss of dark skies with urban lighting basically going everywhere now in the Quebec area. So they're going to be coming to give part of this presentation with us and lead this project, which means that night, if the weather is on the field, we will have music playing. So you can actually experience an observation night with music accompanying you. They'll also have poets giving live poetry sessions indoors throughout the night. And then we have this amazing event that we do with the John Abbott College Space Club every October. This time around, it's on Wednesday, October 29th, and it's called Spooky Nights. And it's a chance for kids to dress up in their best space-themed Halloween costume and do space-themed activities. And Kara, one of our execs of the John Abbott College Space Club, will be leading the students into developing these activities, and we'll run them for 2 hours at John Abbott in a nice indoor safe environment for any parents or anybody who has younger siblings that wants to bring them out to do just a nice Halloween activity Wednesday night, early enough that it shouldn't eat into your school time. And you can make sure that they eat the treats later on the weekend when, the sugar high doesn't cause too much of a problem. Now, for tonight, we are here to learn about meteor showers. And we're very privileged to have with us tonight one of our former John Abbott students, a graduate from University of Toronto Astronomy and Astrophysics. Willow Taiger is going to lead us through an understanding of the Perseid meteor shower. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hi everyone, can everybody hear me in the back? Yes? Everybody outside? Hello. Thank you for the introduction. As Karim said, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the meteor shower that hopefully we will be seeing tonight. Any time now. Do I press this down? This down?
Now?
Perfect. Okay. So the Perseids meteor shower is actually the brightest meteor shower in the northern hemisphere, and it peaks the early morning of August 12th, but tonight is actually still a great time to see it. The reason why we call it the Perseids meteor shower is because it looks like it's coming from the constellation Perseus. So for us, it's best to look upwards and away from northeast in order to see it. Now, before we get started, I do just want to go back in time a little bit to how people have observed the history of comets and more specifically, like how they have interpreted comets in the past. Because we are not the first people, obviously, to be looking at it. And I'm calling this section the old-ish history of comets because honestly, like compared to the age of the universe, nothing is really old. And so we'll start with some oral stories. So a couple of legends, we have this trickster coyote that looks up at the stars twinkling and realizing they're dancing. And he asks to join them, but they say that, that he won't be able to keep up. Eventually he ends up going, and lastly he can't keep up, and he falls in the form of a shooting star. Then we have the word Agag, which is the Ojibwe word for the one who falls from the shooting star. And this term is actually means Wolverine, but it comes from a legend in which an ill-tempered star spirit falls to the earth and leaves a crater. And a few years later, once the crater fills with water, a creature emerges. And the Anishinaabe also have pretty extensive astronomical oral records, and one of them is from Halley's Comet. And they actually have records of observing it from 1909 and 1834, and possibly earlier. Beyond oral records, we have written records like marks of comets in caves and in countless books. And in China, scholars used to write on silk scrolls describing comets, their shape and their tails and their colors, because different comets, different shapes would signify different omens. And speaking of omens, comets were never good. Never a good thing. This is something that's common from many cultures around the world, many different times. If you were born under a comet, if you had some special event under a comet, it was bad news, like so bad. And it was so bad that even the word disaster, if you break it into its roots, it literally means bad start. Like it was really bad coming. And now we'll go forward a little bit and talk about specifically how people view Perseids. And so the earliest record of the Perseids that we have is from China. And the earliest records are from 36 CE, where they describe a spectacular light show of around 100 comets per hour going across the sky for this time of year. And a bit later on in Europe, we have the Tears of St. Lawrence, and they have that name because it falls around when the anniversary of his death was. But it was only around the mid-1800s when people started to learn where these meteor showers were actually coming from. And now I could go straight away and just say where the Perseids are coming from, but unfortunately, nothing in astronomy is ever easy or simple, so it wouldn't make any sense. So I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about how the solar system formed. I promise it will be relevant. So right now, the theory that we use to describe the formation of the solar system is called the solar nebula theory. Basically, a big cloud of gas and dust flattened and spun, and the densest stuff stayed in the middle, while the least dense stuff flew out to the side. So for us, this was the sun, the rocky planet, and then the gas giants flew out to the side. And the sun takes up the most mass in the solar system. And then we have, for a little bit, we have Jupiter and the other planets, but then we still have a little bit left, like the leftovers of the leftovers. And these are dwarf planets, asteroids, and comets. So first off, we have asteroids, which are kind of weirdly shaped. They have a lot of marks from different impact craters, and these are found between Mars and Jupiter in the main asteroid belt. And then we have comets, which are these small icy bodies. They have these nuclei made of water ice and different kinds of ice. And as they approach the sun, they kind of get this tail of gas and dust. And that tail changes shape as goes around the sun. And you can kind of see here, there's this diagram here that shows the way that the tails change. And you can also see this pretty cool compilation in real life, how it looks. And they get this kind of distinctive blue color from the carbon monoxide in the tail that kind of gets excited as it approaches the sun. And there's two main types of comets. There's the short period comets. Typically, their periods are maybe max 200 years around the sun. And those ones are found in the Kuiper belt beyond Neptune. And then you have the much longer period ones, like we're talking maybe like millions of years, from way beyond the Kuiper belts, and these are in the Oort cloud. And notably, they also leave a path of a trail of debris, and this is important. Lastly, we have meteoroids, meteors, and meteorites, which is possibly the most questionable naming convention in all of astronomy. If anyone has a good idea of how to remember these, I'm all ears. Come talk to me afterwards. The meteoroids are these small rocky bodies that just kind of stay in space. But once they hit the Earth's atmosphere, they become meteors. Usually at this point, they all just kind of burn up, and that's that. But sometimes they make it through the atmosphere and land on Earth, and this is when they become meteorites. So usually if you see something advertised as a space rock and it's not from the moon or from another planet, it's usually a meteorite. There's three main types of meteorites. We have stony meteorites that are made up of these little glassy kind of spherical inclusions. We have iron meteorites that are like very, very heavy and dense. And then we have the very creatively named stony iron meteorites that are a combination of both. And meteorites are responsible for making these like huge impact craters on Earth. And the most famous one is probably the one in Yucatan, Mexico, that was probably responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. So now we know what meteorites are responsible for, but what about meteors? Meteor showers, like tonight. And tonight specifically is from the debris of comet Swift-Tuttle. This is a short period comet, and it last flew near the sun back in 1992. And the reason why we see it around this time is because the Earth actually flies into its path of debris. It's kind of like if you're driving and a bug hits your windshield, except in this case, the bug is the debris and the windshield is the Earth's atmosphere. And so this causes a bunch of the debris kind of going into the atmosphere and burning up and giving us like this amazing light show. And you can actually see the Perseids meteor shower from between July 17th and August 24th, but really the best nights are tonight, last night, and tomorrow night. The peak is on August 12th at like early in the morning, but usually later at night you can see it, so you won't have to stay up until 3 a.m. Hopefully we can see some tonight. The Perseids are really what got me into astronomy in the first place. I think it's really special that we can partake in this long history of viewing these meteor showers, interpreting them, observing them, and recording them. And I think it's special also that we still have a dark enough space in Montreal to be able to see them. So I hope that tonight we're able to see some, and I also hope that this experience is as special for you as it is for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for a good presentation. My name is Maury. I'm the president of the Montreal Center. So welcome tonight to our annual event. Yes. So I just want to point out that some of you have already found out there's an information table over there. We have some moon charts, some star finders, a brand new printed bookmark. We also have it's a very internal art that helps us going information jar. The light is we have one on the snack table there, so if you can put a little something in there just to help us, you know, for all this stuff to give away. No, the lights. If you want some coffee, juice, cookies, it's over there. And when you go outside, There, you'll see an observatory, big dome a little dome in the field. That's the Bellevue Observatory. In there, there's a 14-inch telescope. And one of gets quite big, but it goes past. Go in there, look through the telescope. I don't know what they're going to be pointing to. They change it up depending on what's available and what's clear. Hopefully the clouds will be cooperating tonight. Here's supposed to rain tomorrow, which will probably be a good thing for us all right now. But go in there, if you haven't looked through a telescope, it's a real treat. But for the meteor shower, you don't need a telescope. You don't want a telescope. All you want to do is have a blanket, a chair, sit down, look in the general direction of the sky, and just look up. Now, there's a rule of thumb. If I'm looking here, look there. That's where they're going to be. And you're going to hear people saying that. Wow, and where? And they happen really fast. You're talking about a second or two for each one. They're not very long. So it's really by chance that you see it. So you got to be persistent and patient and just look up. I was here Saturday night for a club event here. And I just happened to look up around 8:45, was it? Yeah. And I saw this most amazing fireball going through the sky, just over there. Saw it for about a second or two, and it's embedded in my brain as the highlight of my astronomy. I don't want to say career, because it's not my job.
You're not allowed to retire yet.
No, I'm not retired. But it just sort of implanted in my brain the image.
But to give you an idea, when he said, ooh, immediately those of us who hadn't seen it turned towards where he was looking at, but it's gone.
Yeah.
It finishes that quickly. Occasionally one is bright enough to leave a little bit of a trail. But last night even, you were hearing oohs and ahs, and it wasn't in your field of view by the time you looked.
It looked like one of those doomsday posters of an asteroid. It was that dramatic in my mind. So when you go out there, look up, enjoy it, and come to another event. Go to our website, you'll see under calendar events all the events that we have, and come up and enjoy the night sky with us.
I want to give you one more pointer just to help, since the sun's not down yet. We have these amazing star finders, and these are like little planispheres. And a lot of you will have apps on your phone that you prefer to use that help you know what you're looking at in the night sky. But when you look at something on your phone, it ruins your night vision. And it takes a little bit of time to get that night vision back. It's also why, even though we have refreshments in here up until 10 o'clock, if you're out there and you're comfortable, you're going to want to stay out there because you're going to want your eyes to stay adjusted to the dark sky. Because if your pupils are larger, you're going to see more light come in. So these little star maps help us to know what's going to be out any night that we go out before we're under the stars. So there's a dial here that has the date and a time stamp here. If you adjust the date and time to when you'll be outside, what you're seeing in here is the night sky that you might see if you're in perfectly dark skies. The larger dots are the brighter stars, the smaller dots are the dimmer stars. So even in the middle of the city, some of these largest dots you will have a chance to see. The only thing you have to figure out is the date and time, and hopefully you know what day and time it is, but also what direction is north. And north, those of you who've gone sailing or orienteering, you use the Big Dipper, you find the North Star, you feel really good about it. But if you don't know how to find the North Star, you need a reference. And Montreal is notorious for saying Montreal North, Montreal South, East and West, but it's actually all at about a 40-degree angle from those actual directions. So what I can tell you is if you're on the field near the observatory and you turn towards this parking lot, you're facing north. So then if you place the northern horizon facing north, this is the sky you would see. And that yellowish line is the plane of the solar system. So that's the moon, the sun, the planets are always near that area. So I keep one of these in my car. If I ever have a dark sky before I get out of the car, I just quickly look and say, all right, I have a really nice sky to the south. I'm going to see Sagittarius. So if I see Sagittarius, if I come back here to share that original one here. Big. If you look here, you can see a trapezoid with a triangle on top and triangle and handle, that's the teapot of Sagittarius. And the actual arm of the Milky Way comes out of there, and this direction is the center of our galaxy. So in the summertime, that's directly to the south. Right now, we're in the late summer. It's going to be slightly southwest once the sun sets. And so you pick out those bright stars, and it's shaped like a teapot, and that helps you to start orient yourself with the night sky. So when you're out on the field, if you start seeing some stars, you're like, I wonder what star that is. I wonder, that looks like a pattern of stars. I wonder what that is. Look for any of the RASC members walking around, asking people if they have any questions, and ask us, and we'll help you to actually guide yourself and pick up one of these and keep this with you. It'll really be a handy reference for you to prepare for any night out under the night sky. So with that, we'll invite you to pick up some materials, get yourself some refreshments, find a nice spot on the field. And if there's people outside who want a second presentation, we'll try one in about 15 minutes if there's enough of an audience. Okay. You're welcome.